Carlos Castaneda's The Teachings of Don Juan, a Yaqui Way of Knowledge. Part 1, The Teachings, Chapter 10. In the month of December 1964, Don Juan and I went to collect the different plants needed to make the smoking mixture. It was the fourth cycle. Don Juan merely supervised my actions. He urged me to take time to watch and to deliberate before I picked any of the plants. As soon as the ingredients had been gathered and stored, he prompted me to meet his ally again. Thursday, December 31st, 1964. Now that you know a bit more about the devil's weed and the smoke, you can tell more clearly which of the two you like better, Don Juan said. The smoke really terrifies me, Don Juan. I don't know exactly why, but I don't have a good feeling about it. You like flattery, and the devil's weed flatters you. Like a woman, she makes you feel good. The smoke, on the other hand, is the most noble power. He has the purest heart. He does not entice men or make them prisoners, nor does he love or hate. All he requires is strength. The devil's weed also requires strength, but of a different kind. It is closer to being virile with women. On the other hand, the strength required by the smoke is the strength of the heart. You don't have that, but very few men have it. That is why I recommend that you learn more about the smoke. He reinforces the heart. He is not like the devil's weed, full of passions, jealousies, and violence. The smoke is constant. You don't have to worry about forgetting something along the line. Wednesday, January 27th, 1965. On Tuesday, January 19th, I smoked again the hallucinogenic mixture. I had told Don Juan I felt very apprehensive about the smoke and that it frightened me, but he said I had to try it again to evaluate it with justice. We walked into his room. It was almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He brought out the pipe. I got the charcoals, then we sat facing each other. He said he was going to warm up the pipe and awaken her. If I had watched carefully, I would see how she glowed. He put the pipe to his lips 3 or 4 times and sucked through it. He rubbed it tenderly. Suddenly he nodded, almost imperceptibly, to signal me to look at the pipe's awakening. I looked, but I couldn't see it. He handed the pipe to me. I filled the bowl with my own mixture, and then picked a burning coal with a pair of tweezers I had made from a wooden clothespin and had been saving for the occasion. Don Juan looked at my tweezers and began to laugh. I vacillated for a moment, and the charcoal stuck to the tweezers. I was afraid to tap them again against the pipe bowl, and I had to spit on the charcoal to put it out. Don Juan turned his head away and covered his face with his arm. His body shook. For a moment I thought he was crying, but he was laughing silently. The action was interrupted for a long time. Then he swiftly picked up a charcoal himself and put it in the bowl and ordered me to smoke. It required quite an effort to suck through the mixture. It seemed to be very compact. After the first try, I felt I had sucked the fine powder into my mouth. It numbed my mouth immediately. I saw the glow in the bowl, but I never felt the smoke as the smoke of a cigarette is felt. Yet I had the sensation of inhaling something that filled my lungs first, then pushed itself down to fill the rest of my body. I counted 20 inhalations, and then the count did not matter any longer. I began to sweat. Don Juan looked at me fixedly and told me not to be afraid and to do exactly as he said. I tried to say, "All right," but instead I made a weird howling sound. It went on resounding after I had closed my mouth. The sound startled Don Juan, who had another attack of laughter. I wanted to say yes with my head, but I couldn't move. Don Juan opened my hands gently and took the pipe away. He ordered me to lie down on the floor, but not to fall asleep. I wondered if he was going to help me lie down, but he did not. He just stared at me uninterruptedly. All of a sudden, I saw the room tumbling, and I was looking at Don Juan from a position on my side. From that point on, the images became strangely blurry, as in a dream. I can vaguely recall hearing Don Juan talk to me a great deal during the time I was immobilized. I did not experience fear or unpleasantness during the state itself, nor was I sick upon awakening the next day. The only thing out of the ordinary was that I could not think clearly for some time after waking up. Then gradually, in a period of 4 or 5 hours, I became myself again. Wednesday, January 20th, 1965. Don Juan did not talk about my experience, nor did he ask me to relate it to him. His sole comment was that I had fallen asleep too soon. The only way to stay awake is to become a bird or a cricket or something of that sort, he said. How do you do that, Don Juan? That is what I am teaching you. Do you remember what I said to you yesterday while you were without your body? I can't recall clearly. I am a crow. I am teaching you how to become a crow. When you learn that, you will stay awake and you will move freely. Otherwise, you will always be glued to the ground wherever you fall. Sunday, February 7th, 1965. My second attempt with the smoke took place about midday on Sunday, January 31st. I woke up the following day in the early evening. I had the sensation of possessing an unusual power to recollect whatever Don Juan had said to me during the experience. His words were imprinted on my mind. I kept on hearing them with extraordinary clarity and persistence. During this attempt, another fact became obvious to me. My entire body had become numb soon after I began to swallow the fine powder, which got into my mouth every time I sucked the pipe. Thus, I not only inhaled the smoke, but also ingested the mixture. I tried to narrate my experience to Don Juan. He said I had done nothing important. I mentioned that I could remember everything that had happened, but he did not want to hear about it. Every memory was precise and unmistakable. The smoking procedure had been the same as in the previous attempt. It was almost as if the two experiences were perfectly juxtaposable. I could start my recollection from the time the first experience ended. I clearly remembered that from the time I fell to the ground on my side, I was completely devoid of feeling or thought. Yet my clarity was not impaired in any way. I remember thinking my last thought about the time the room became a vertical plane. I must have clunked my head on the floor, yet I don't feel any pain. From that point on, I could only see and hear. I could repeat every word Don Juan had said. I followed each one of his directions. They seemed clear, logical, and easy. He said that my body was disappearing, and only my head was going to remain. And in such a condition, the only way to stay awake and move around was by becoming a crow. He commanded me to make an effort to wink, and added that whenever I was capable of winking, I would be ready to proceed. Then he told me that my body had vanished completely, and all I had was my head. And he said the head never disappears because the head is what turns into a crow. He ordered me to wink. He must have repeated the command and all his other commands countless times, because I could remember all of them with extraordinary clarity. I must have winked because he said I was ready and ordered me to straighten up my head and put it on my chin. He ordered me to straighten up my head and put it on my chin. He said that in the chin were the crow's legs. He commanded me to feel the legs and observe that they were coming out slowly. He then said that I was not solid yet, and that I had to grow a tail, and that the tail would come out of my neck. He ordered me to extend the tail like a fan, and to feel how it swept the floor. Then he talked about the crow's wings. He said that they would come out of my cheekbones. He said it was hard and painful. He commanded me to unfold them. He said they had to be extremely long as I could stretch them. Otherwise, I would not be able to fly. He told me the wings were coming out and they were long and beautiful, and that I had to flap them until they were real wings. He talked about the top of my head next, and said it was very large and heavy, and its bulk would prevent me from flying. He told me that the way to reduce its size was by winking. With every wink, my head would become smaller. He ordered me to wink until the top weight was gone and I could jump freely. Then he told me I had reduced my head to the size of a crow, and that I had to walk around and hop until I had lost my stiffness. There was one last thing I had to change, he said, before I could fly. It was the most difficult change, and to accomplish it, I had to be docile and do exactly as he told me. I had to learn to see like a crow. He said that my mouth and nose were going to grow between my eyes until I had a strong beak. He said the crow see straight to the side, and commanded me to turn my head and look at him with one eye. He said that if I wanted to change and look with the other eye, I had to shake my beak down, and that movement would make me look through the other eye. He ordered me to shift from one eye to the other. Then he said I was ready to fly, and that the only way to fly was to have him toss me into the air. I had no difficulty whatsoever eliciting the corresponding sensation to each one of his commands. I had the perception of growing birds' legs, which were weak and wobbly at first. I felt the tail coming out of the back of my neck and the wings out of my cheekbones. The wings were folded deeply. I felt them coming out by degrees. The process was hard, but not painful. Then I winked my head down to the size of a crow. But the most astonishing effect was accomplished by my eyes, my bird sight. When Don Juan directed me to grow a beak, I had an annoying sensation of a lack of air. Then something bulged out and created a block in front of me. But it was not until Don Juan directed me to see laterally that my eyes actually were capable of having a full view to the side. I could wink one eye at a time and shift the focus from one eye to the other. But the sight of the room and all the things in it was not like an ordinary sight. Yet it was impossible to tell in what way it was different. Perhaps it was lopsided, or perhaps things were out of focus. Don Juan became very big and glowy. Something about him was comforting and safe. Then the images blurred, and they lost their outlines and became sharp, abstract patterns that flickered for a while. Sunday, March 28, 1965. On Thursday, March 18th, I smoked again. The hallucinogenic mixture. The initial procedure was different in small details. I had to refill the bowl once. After I had finished the first batch, Don Juan directed me to clean the bowl, but he poured the mixture into the bowl himself because I lacked muscular coordination. It took a great deal of effort to move my hands. There was enough mixture in my bag for one refill. Don Juan looked at the bag and said that this was my last attempt with the smoke until the next year because I had used up all my provisions. He turned the little bag inside out and shook the dust into the dish that held the charcoals. It burned with an orange glow, as if he had placed a sheet of transparent material over the charcoals. The sheet burst into flame. Then it cracked into an intricate pattern of lines. Something zigzagged inside the lines at a high speed. Don Juan told me to look at the movement in the lines. I saw something that looked like a small marble, rolling back and forth in the glowing area. He leaned over and put his hand into the glow. and picked out the marble and placed it in the pipe bowl. He ordered me to take a puff. I had a clear impression that he had put a small ball into the pipe so that I would inhale it. In a moment, the room lost its horizontal position. I felt a profound numbness, a sensation of heaviness. When I awakened, I was lying on my back at the bottom of a shallow irrigation dish, immersed in the water up to my chin. Someone was holding my head. It was Don Juan. The first thought I had was that the water in the channel had an unusual quality. It was cold and heavy. It slapped lightly against me. My thoughts cleared with every movement it made. At first, the water had a bright green halo or fluorescence, which soon dissolved, leaving only a stream of ordinary water. I asked Don Juan about the time of day. He said it was early morning. After a while, I was completely awake and got out of the water. "You must tell me all you saw," Don Juan said when we got to his house. He also said he had been trying to bring me back for 3 days and had had a very difficult time doing it. I made numerous attempts to describe what I had seen, but I could not concentrate. Later on, during the early evening, I felt I was ready to talk to Don Juan, and I began to tell him what I remembered from the time I had fallen on my side, but he did not want to hear about it. He said the only interesting part was what I saw and did after he tossed me into the air, and I flew away. All I could remember was a series of dreamlike images or scenes. They had no sequential order. I had the impression that each one of them was like an isolated bubble, floating into focus, then moving away. They were not, however, merely scenes to look at. I was inside them. I took part in them. When I tried to recollect them at first, I had the sensation that they were vague, diffused flashes. But as I thought about them, I realized that each one of them was extremely clear, although totally unrelated to ordinary seeing, hence the sensation of vagueness. The images were few and simple. As soon as Don Juan mentioned that he had tossed me into the air, I had a faint recollection of an absolutely clear scene in which I was looking straight at him from a distance away. I was looking at his face only. It was monumental in size. It was flat and had an intense glow. His hair was yellowish and it moved. Each part of his face moved by itself, projecting a sort of amber light. The next image was one which Don Juan had actually tossed me up or hurled me in a straight onward direction. I remembered I extended my wings and flew. I felt alone, cutting through the air, painfully moving straight ahead. It was more like walking than like flying. It tired my body. There was no feeling of flowing free, no exuberance. Then I remembered an instant in which I was motionless, looking at a mass of sharp dark edges set in an area that had a dull, painful light. Next I saw a field with an infinite variety of lights. The lights moved and flickered and changed their luminosity. They were almost like colors. Their intensity dazzled me. At another moment, an object was almost against my eye. It was a thick, pointed object. It had a definite pinkish glow. I felt the sudden tremor somewhere in my body and saw a multitude of smaller pink forms coming toward me. They all moved on me. I jumped away. The last scene I remembered was 3 silvery birds. They radiated a shiny metallic light, almost like stainless steel, but intense and moving and alive. I liked them. We flew together. Don Juan did not make any more comments on my recounting. Tuesday, March 23rd, 1965. The following conversation took place the next day after the recounting of my experience. Don Juan said, "It does not take much to become a crow. You did it, and now you will always be one. What happened after I became a crow, Don Juan? Did I fly for 3 days? No, you came back at nightfall, as I had told you to do. But how did I come back? You were very tired and went to sleep, that is all. I mean, did I fly back? I have already told you. You obeyed me. You came back to the house. But don't concern yourself with that matter. It is of no importance. What is important, then? In your whole trip, there was only one thing of great value: the Silvery Birds. What was so special about them? They were just birds. Not just birds. They were crows. Were they white crows, Don Juan? Black feathers of a crow are really silvery. The crows shine so intensely that they are not bothered by other birds. But why did their feathers look silvery? Because you were seeing as a crow sees. A bird that looks dark to us looks white to a crow. The white pigeons, for instance, are pink and bluish to a crow. Seagulls are yellow. Now try to remember how you joined them. I thought about it, but the birds were a dim, disassociated image which had no continuity. I told him I could not remember, only that I felt I had flown with them. He asked me whether I had joined them in the air or on the ground, but I could not possibly answer that. He became almost angry with me. He demanded that I think about it. He said, all this will not mean a damn if it will be only a mad dream unless you remember correctly. It will only be a mad dream. I strained myself to recollect, but I could not. Saturday, April 3rd, 1965. Today, I thought of another image in my dream about the Silvery Birds. I remembered seeing a dark mass with myriads of pinholes. In fact, the mass was a dark cluster of little holes. I didn't know why I thought it was soft. As I was looking at it, 3 birds flew straight at me. One of them made a noise. Then all 3 of them were next to me on the ground. I described the image to Don Juan. He asked me from what directions the bird had come. I said I couldn't possibly determine that. He became quite impatient, accused me of being inflexible in my thinking. He said I could very well remember if I tried to, and that I was afraid to let myself become less rigid. He said I was thinking in terms of men and crows, and that I was neither a man nor a crow at the time that I wanted to recollect. He asked me to remember what the crow had said to me. I tried to think about it, but my mind played on scores of other things instead. I couldn't concentrate. Sunday, April 4th, 1965. I took a long hike today. It got quite dark before I reached Don Juan's house. I was thinking about the crows when suddenly a very strange thought crossed my mind. It was more like an impression or a feeling than a thought. The bird that had made the noise said they were coming from the north and were going to the south. And when we met again, we would be coming the same way. I told Don Juan what I had thought up or maybe remembered. He said, "Don't think about whether you remembered it or made it up. Such thoughts fit men only. They do not fit crows, especially those you saw, for they are the emissaries of your fate. You are already a crow. You will never change that. From now on, the crows will tell you, with their flight, about every turn of your fate. In which direction did you fly with them?" I don't know that, Don Juan. If you think properly, you will remember. Sit on the floor and tell me the position in which you were when the birds flew to you. Close your eyes and make a line on the floor. Don't open your eyes yet, he proceeded. In which direction did you all fly in relation to that point? I made another mark on the ground. Taking these points of orientation as a reference, Don Juan interpreted the different patterns of flight that crows would observe to forfeit to foretell my personal future or fate. He set up the 4 points of the compass as the axis of the crow's flight. I asked him whether the crows always followed the cardinal points to tell a man's fate. He said the orientation was mine alone. Whatever the crows did in my first meeting with them was of critical importance. He insisted on my recalling every detail, and for the message in the pattern of the emissaries were an individual personalized matter. There was one more thing he insisted I should remember. That was the time of day when the emissaries left me. He asked me to think of the difference in the light around me, between the time when I began to fly and the time when the silvery birds flew away. When I first had the sensation of painful flight, it was dark, but when I saw the birds, everything was reddish, light red or perhaps orange. He said that means it was late in the day. The sun was not down yet. When it is completely dark, a crow is blind with whiteness and not with darkness, the way we are at night. This indication of the time places your last emissaries at the end of the day. They will call you, and as they fly above your head, they will become silvery white. You will see them shining against the sky, and it will mean your time is up. It will mean you are going to die and become a crow yourself. But if I see them during the morning? You won't see them in the morning, but crows fly all day, not your emissaries, you fool. How about your emissaries, Don Juan? Mine will come in the morning. There will also be 3 of them. My benefactor told me that one could shout them back to black if one does not want to die. But now I know it can't be done. My benefactor was given to shouting and to all the clatter and violence of the devil's weed. I know the smoke is different because he has no passion. He is fair. When your silvery emissaries come for you, there is no need to shout at them. Just fly with them as you have already done, and after they have collected you, they will reverse directions, and there will be 4 of them flying away. Saturday, April 10th, 1965. I had been experiencing brief flashes of disassociation or shallow states of non-ordinary reality. One element from the hallucinogenic experience with the mushrooms kept reoccurring in my thoughts. The soft, dark mass of pinholes. I continued to visualize it as a grease or oil bubble that began to draw me to its center. It was almost as if the center would open up and swallow me, and for very brief moments I experienced something resembling a state of non-ordinary reality. As a result, I suffered moments of profound agitation, anxiety, and discomfort, and I willfully strove to end the experience as soon as they began. Today I discussed this condition with Don Juan. I asked for advice. He seemed to be unconcerned and told me to disregard the experiences because they were meaningless, or rather valueless. He said the only experiences worth my effort and concern would be those in which I saw a crow. Any other kind of vision would be merely a product of my fears. He reminded me again that in order to partake of the smoke, it was necessary to lead a strong, quiet life. Personally, I seemed to have reached a dangerous threshold. I told him I felt I could not go on. There was something truly frightening about the mushrooms. In going over the image I recalled from my hallucinogenic experience, I had come to the unavoidable conclusion that I had seen the world in a way that was structurally different from my ordinary vision. In other states of non-ordinary reality I had undergone, the forms and the patterns I had visualized were always within the confines of my visual conception of the world. But the sensation of seeing under the influence of the hallucinogenic smoke mixture was not the same. Everything I saw was in front of me. Everything I saw was in front of me in a different line of vision. Nothing was above or below that line of vision. Every image had an irritating flatness, and yet, disconcertingly, a profound depth. Perhaps it would be more accurate to say that the images were a conglomerate of unbelievably sharp details set inside fields of different light. The light in the fields moved, creating an effect of rotation. After probing and exerting myself to remember, I was forced to make a series of analogies or similes in order to understand what I had seen. Don Juan's face, for instance, looked as if he had been submerged in water. The water seemed to move in a continuous flow over his face and hair. It so magnified them that I could see every pore in the skin or every hair on his head whenever I focused my vision. On the other hand, I saw masses of matter that were flat and full of edges, but did not move because there was no fluctuation in light that came from them. I asked Don Juan what were the images that I had seen. He said that because this was the first time I was seeing as a crow, the images were not clear or important, and that later on, with practice, I would be able to recognize everything. I brought up the issue of the difference I had detected in the movement of light. Things that are alive, he said, move inside, and a crow can easily see when something is dead or about to die, because the movement has stopped, or the slowing down, or is slowing down to a stop. A crow can also tell when something is moving too fast, and by the same token, a crow can tell when something is moving just right. What does it mean when something is moving too fast or just right? It means a crow can actually tell what to avoid and what to seek. When something is moving too fast inside, it means it is about to explode violently or to leap forward, and a crow will avoid it. When it moves inside just right, it is a pleasing sight, and a crow will seek it. Do rocks move inside? No, not rocks or dead animals or dead trees, but they are beautiful to look at. That is why crows hang around dead bodies. They like to look at them. No light moves against them. But when the flesh rots, doesn't it change or move? Yes, but that is a different movement. What a crow sees then is millions of things moving inside the flesh with a light of their own. And that is what a crow likes to see. It is truly an unforgettable sight. Have you seen it yourself, Don Juan? Anybody who learns to become a crow can see it. You will see it yourself. At this point, I asked Don Juan the unavoidable question. Did I really become a crow? I mean, would anyone seeing me have thought I was an ordinary crow? No, you can't think that way when dealing with the power of the Allies. Such questions make no sense, and yet to become a crow is the simplest of all matters. It is almost like frolicking. It has little usefulness. As I have already told you, the smoke is not for those who seek power. It is only for those who crave to see. I learned to become a crow because these birds are the most effective of all. No other birds bother them, except perhaps larger, hungrier eagles. But crows fly in groups and can defend themselves. Men don't bother crows either. That is an important point. Any man can distinguish a large eagle, especially an unusual eagle, or any other large, unusual bird. But who cares about a crow? A crow is safe. It is ideal in size and nature. It can go safely into any place without attracting attention. On the other hand, it is possible to become a lion or a bear, but that is rather dangerous. Such a creature is too large. It takes too much energy to become one. One can also become a cricket or a lizard or even an ant, but it is even more dangerous because large animals prey on small creatures. I argued what he was saying meant that one really changed into a crow or a cricket or anything else, but I insisted I was misunderstanding. Let me try that again. I argued that what he was saying meant that one really changed into a crow or a cricket or anything else, but one insisted on but he insisted I was misunderstanding. It takes a very long time to learn to be a proper crow, he said. But you did not change, nor did you stop being a man. There is something else. Can you tell me what that something else is, Don Juan? Perhaps by now you know it yourself. Maybe if you were not afraid of becoming mad or of losing your body, you would understand this marvelous secret. But perhaps you must wait until you lose your fear to understand what I mean. End of chapter.